Hello, everyone. My name is Setanaoko Oshina. The topic of this workshop is research, the key to a Jedi workshop. And I don't know, this might be the shortest class ever. The shortest class I ever do, because, yeah, I don't know. So, it might seem strange that a lifestyle would rely on research to stand itself up. But we have to remember that the Jedi path is a modern creation, evolving with modern people. As such, we have to remember that there are a few key points about the Jedi path in the fiction, right? So George Lucas didn't create Star Wars in a vacuum. He actually learned academically to, he actually took what he learned academically and applied it to the writing of the story. So Star Wars technically began in research and became a modern inspiration that has endured for almost half a century now. The authors of the fictional Jedi lore have uh, upheld knowledge as one of the three pillars. Knowledge comes in many forms, but amongst these is the ability to move from subjective knowledge to objective knowledge, which brings us to the Jedi compass that teaches us that objectivity is a virtue. So for this workshop, I'm going to share how I find information for my own workshops. And in the process, I guess you'll get to learn a little bit about Reiki. So while it may be true that there are things that sometimes we just know because we've witnessed something work, it doesn't mean that we can convince others that what we are saying is accurate. It just means we can give a testimony of our experience. Objective research allows us to accomplish two things. One, it challenges our knowledge. And two, it verifies our knowledge. So before we teach things, we know we must be, as another Jedi virtue insists, responsible. As such, it's important that we utilize tools we have available to us in order to mitigate giving or even believing things which are untrue. So, how it starts. Before you begin researching a topic, you should know what topic you will be talking about. For example, we'll use the Force for this one. Now you know why I said something about Reiki. So now we have a general topic, but as you might imagine, the topic of the Force, even in the fiction, is pretty broad. The next phase is to narrow down what we want to teach or learn about regarding the Force. So for the purposes of this workshop, I want to explore how one might use the Force in healing. Before we begin, I want to clarify the definition of the Force that we use at International Jedi Federation is as follows. The Force is a loosely adapted term to explain something which all cultures agree exists, but disagree on exactly what it is. As such, a Jedi dedicates themselves to an understanding of all things within and through the Force. As a rule, no Jedi can set down in law a concrete definition of the Force for all to follow, only for themselves. So, with this understanding that we believe everyone's interpretation of the Force is to be respected, it means that we have an open door on what healing with the Force means. Depending on who you ask, this could be anything from a medical practice to the less esoteric Jedi. So, medical practice to a less esoteric Jedi to energy healing traditions such as Reiki for the more metaphysically oriented Jedi. I happen to be in the metaphysical camp myself, believing in the reality of Reiki, Qigong, and faith healing. So, as Reiki is the more well-known of these traditions, I'm going to use that as our example for research. So now I have to narrow the topic even further. So what do I want to talk about with regards to Reiki? Do I want to teach Reiki techniques? For the record, personally, I'm not trained as a professional. So I'm not ever going to speak on that until I actually have training, which may or may never happen. Two, how do I want to tie Reiki to the Force? This answer will likely be different for each person because of our acceptance of others' definitions of the Force as being valid. And finally, Is there any evidence supporting what I want to say in my class? So that's kind of the reason I chose Reiki for this topic, actually. You can get a lot of subjective answers on whether or not it really works. But as it turns out, Reiki is one of the more researched healing techniques or traditions there are. So you don't need to rely on random testimony to find information about it. Colleges and universities have experimented with Reiki enough that you can find scholarly sources on it. Now that we have what we're looking for about Reiki, I'm going to focus on just one question. Is there evidence supporting it as a valid healing tradition? So I happen to know that several hospitals in the United States do, in fact, offer patients Reiki. But knowing that hospitals offer it isn't really enough to validate the tradition. After all, many people contest several religions, and hospitals offer chaplain services. So it's easy enough for someone to write off the validity of Reiki as nothing more than a way to appease the superstitious. Thus, I turn to another source. I love this source. I'm going to start sharing it. It is called Google Scholar. It is simply scholar.google.com. It is beautiful. I love this thing. And even if you think that this is a that Google is the devil, their scholar stuff, like their website, they get stuff. Okay, so if you happen to have access to a better library, which I absolutely loved when I was in college, I actually had access to a much better library. So if you have access to a much better library, by all means, use that. But if you are the average person and you don't have access to nothing else, Google Scholar is the place to go. So the other thing is that this does also just usually gives you abstracts. You won't necessarily get a hold of uh, the whole of it. So there is that, and some people like me like to dig into what the actual research papers have to say. So, like I said, we're going to use this. So if you're watching the rewind in the description, we're just going to kind of do this. We're going to type in Reiki. I'll get to why these say other things in here later, but we're going to go with Reiki. So we're just going to kind of look around, and I'm going to show you how this is biological correlates of Reiki touch healing. So go in here, you can see where the abstract says a bunch of stuff, really cool stuff. A lot of people do pull from their abstracts to when they're highlighting whether or not something's legit for random research papers. But peer review is peer review and whatnot. So this is all the bibliography. So now hey, they did a lot of research, but you can read full text if they have it. Probably not. You have to get these nice little institutional logins, Wiley Library, etc., to get in here. But basically, method was studied, conducted in 96, involved the examination of physiological and biological effects, experiences of 30 minutes of Reiki, a form of touch therapy, a single group repeated measure design. So basically, we see what it basically did. This is the methods, and the conclusions are that it does change direction of relaxation. So we can see that there's this. I'm going to do another one. We're going to call it remote Reiki. So remote Reiki basically means that the person's elsewhere and you're still doing the Reiki using energy work. So clients experience a virtual Reiki healing sessions. So we can see, what happened here. And basically I can take these and I can use the abstracts if I really wanted to just kind of show, hey, listen, this actually does work or it doesn't work. I'm not really reading through them, but my point is like basically to show you that you can look here and you can find information about it and research things for yourself. And you really should, even after someone teaches a class, if they have not done the research themselves, don't take their word for it. You got to look for yourself. And this tool can help you. I love it. So, these are just kind of things to consider. At the top of the list is, so I'm looking through these and maybe I'm cherry picking, right? So you have to remember that you have to challenge your knowledge too. Remember, I said that earlier that this helps you challenge your knowledge. So you could find whatever. So like Reiki itself has all kinds of factors to be taken into consideration. Uh, when we're looking at this, we have to keep in mind like what did it take to get a certification for each person that's doing these? Did the person follow through with as a true professional? My favorite contemplation actually is like, and I don't mean this sarcastically, is whether or not it poses a theological issue for practitioners who follow a god or a goddess, though I doubt people are going to try to get that deep into the topic. So when you do research on the positives, you should seek out sources which do not support the popular narrative. So I like to use words like controversy, Reiki controversy. So a lot of these were papers that you could see, but like controversies in therapeutic touch. And this one kind of talks about the more, if I remember correctly, this one was about whether or not it's ethical or dealing with the ethics of it. Another, so, there's all kinds of things that you can read up on and have fun looking at it. Um, some of these are journals, some of these are like this one here is from the Atlantic. So it talks about the what somebody did to research and talk about it from a the Atlantic, if you don't know, is a well known publication that talks about all kinds of things from politics to spiritual stuff that's going on. I'm not really sure what their audience specifically targets, but I know they're a periodical, like a magazine. So you can find magazine articles where people explore the concepts and books. Here's a book. It talks about it, Reiki and clinical practice, science-based guide. So this kind of, but be careful of books because books are books. Make sure that what you're looking at for sources is matches up and read up on who it is that's actually doing the study. So then another word that I like using is like scam. So-called alternative medicine. So this is interesting that they turned that into its own acronym. So you just find little things and you can look and you can read up and make sure that you're challenging yourself. Fake medicine, exposing the wellness crazes, cons, and quacks costing our health. So you have this too. And you can look and see what the controversies are and what people have been saying. And those kind of bring to mind those questions that I was saying earlier, like is the person a professional or where did they get their stuff from and their certification from. So as you can see, Google Scholar is a pretty useful tool and can even be used to help you research one of our favorite topics in the community, the forests. So in conclusion, I want all of you to take from this class the following wisdom. When you have evidence to back your claims, people take what you have to say more seriously. They see that you're not just talking about something you want to believe and that you will give them a better reason to listen to what you have to say. Also, don't forget to put your sources up on your workshop